Hello, this is the Bible History School. In our Bible History School, we summarize the words of the 66 books of the Old and New Testaments and upload them as short videos every day. It makes it much easier to understand the text and overall flow of the Bible. The Old Testament has 39 books and 929 chapters. The New Testament has 27 books and 260 chapters. And the 66 books of the Old and New Testaments have a total of 1,189 chapters. It takes 1,189 days to read one chapter of the Bible every day. If you just read the Bible, there are many parts that are difficult to read and understand. So, we summarized the key contents of each chapter and created short videos. It is much easier to understand the content if you watch the appropriate videos together than if you just read the sentences. We made it into easy sentences, middle and high school students can easily understand. Not only students but also ordinary people who have a hard time reading the Bible due to their busy daily lives. It is good for them to meditate on one chapter of the Bible every day. I hope you will encourage your children, parents, friends, and neighbors to read the Bible. In addition, the Bible History School is currently serializing Revelation and World History with great acclaim. We would appreciate it if you could subscribe together. Your support and encouragement have given us a lot of strength in producing Bible A Day in Revelation and World History. Thank you very much. Joshua, Chapter 1. The Lord speaks to Joshua. After Moses died, God gave Joshua a new mission. Moses, my servant, is dead. Now go, cross the Jordan, you and the Israelites, into the land I am giving you. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for I will give this people the land through you. If you keep the law and meditate on it, you will prosper. After receiving this command from God, Joshua instructed the Israelites to prepare. He told them to go out and enter the land the Lord was giving them. The Israelites listened to Joshua and obeyed. They pledged to follow Joshua and encouraged him to be strong and courageous. The Israelites' new journey has begun. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, Chapter 2. Joshua sends spies to Jericho. Joshua, who led the people of Israel. 2 spies were sent from Shittim to scout out the land of Jericho. They arrived in Jericho and stayed in the house of a woman named Rahab. However, when news of this reached the king of Jericho, he sent messengers to Rahab and ordered her to hand over the spies. Rahab had already hidden them and deceived the king's men, claiming they had left the city gate under cover of darkness, and then sent them away. Rahab hid the spies on her roof and confessed that she believed that the Lord, the God of Israel, is the only God of heaven and earth. She then asked the spies to spare her and her family. The spies accepted her request and made a promise. The spies told Rahab to tie a scarlet cord in the window as a sign. The spies returned safely and reported everything to Joshua. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, Chapter 3. The Israelites cross the Jordan. Joshua and all the Israelites left Shittim and arrived at the Jordan River. They remained at the riverbank for 3 days. And then, the officials commanded the people to follow the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant. Keeping a distance from the priests, the people set out along the first route they had taken. Joshua told the people to sanctify themselves and prepare for the miracle God would perform. When the priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant reached the Jordan and dipped their feet in the water stopped flowing and the path opened up. The people crossed the Jordan on dry ground. And the priests stood in the middle of the river and guarded the banks until the entire nation had safely crossed. This symbolized God's presence among Israel and his leading them to the promised land. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 4. The 12 stones set up at Gilgal. The Israelites, having crossed the Jordan River on dry ground, experienced God's amazing work. The Lord instructed Joshua to choose 12 men, one from each tribe. He then had them bring 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan River. These stones were set up at Gilgal as a sign to commemorate God's power and grace to future generations. Whenever their descendants asked about the stones, they would tell the story of Israel crossing the Jordan on dry land. It was God's will that the people of all the earth should recognize and fear the mighty hand of Jehovah. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 5. Israel receives circumcision at Gilgal. After crossing the Jordan River, the Israelites were circumcised at Gilgal, as the Lord had instructed. The Lord commanded Joshua to make flint knives and circumcise the people again. This was because, unlike the generation that came out of Egypt, those born in the wilderness had not been circumcised. Joshua circumcised all the people, and they remained in the camp until their wounds healed. The Lord declared that by doing this, the reproach of Egypt had been rolled away from them. After this, the Israelites celebrated Passover and began to eat the produce of the land of Canaan. As a result, manna no longer fell. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 6. The walls of Jericho fall. The walls of Jericho were tightly shut up for fear of the Israelites. Then the Lord said to Joshua, "I have given Jericho, its king, and its warriors into your hand." The Israelite soldiers marched around the city once a day for 6 days. On the 7th day, the last day, they marched around the city 7 times, following God's command to blow the trumpets. On the 7th day, the priests blew the trumpets. Joshua shouted to the people, "Shout! The Lord has given this city." When they shouted with a loud shout, the walls of Jericho fell down, and the people captured the city. This city and all that it contained were dedicated to the Lord, and Rahab and her family were spared. Thus, Rahab found favor with the Israelites, and lived among the Lord's people. It was known throughout the land that God was with Joshua. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 7. Achan's sin. Joshua and the Israelites gained great confidence after their victory at Jericho. However, they faced great difficulties due to Achan's sin. Because Achan stole the things dedicated to God, Israel was defeated in the Battle of Ai. Joshua prostrated himself before God and asked why. God revealed the cause of the sin and commanded Israel to be purified. Finally, through a drawing of lots, Achan was revealed as the culprit. He confessed his sin and where he had hidden the stolen goods. The Israelites took Achan, his family, and all his possessions to the valley of Acre, and punished them. From that day on, the valley of Acre became a place where God's wrath was stopped. And it taught the Israelites an important lesson. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 8. The capture of Ai. Joshua, following God's command, marched fearlessly toward Ai. As at Jericho, God promised victory this time as well. God allowed the Israelites to seize the livestock and goods from Ai. Joshua strategically divided his troops into ambushes, and the Israelites lured the enemy out of the city with a false defeat. At that moment, soldiers in ambush captured the castle and set it on fire. The people of Ai, realizing this too late, were unable to escape. Israel annihilated the enemy and devastated the city. Later, Joshua built an altar to God on Mount Ebal, read the law. Joshua commanded the Israelite community to inscribe God's words on the altar. Everything happened as planned, and God was with Joshua. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 9. The Gibeonites deceive Joshua. News of Israel's defeat of Jericho and Ai spread throughout the land, and the surrounding nations trembled in fear. But the Gibeonites chose deception instead of fighting. They wore worn-out clothes and worn-out sandals, pretending to be from a distant land, and approached Joshua. They said, "We have come from a distant country, make a treaty with us." Joshua and Israel listened to their pleas, and made a treaty without consulting the Lord. However, 3 days later, they learned that the Gibeonites lived nearby. The angry Israelites grumbled against their leaders, but they could not break their oath in the name of the Lord. Eventually, the Gibeonites became woodcutters and water carriers for Israel. Thanks to Joshua's resolve, they saved their lives, and ultimately remained servants of God. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 10. Taking all the kings of the Amorites and their land. The 5 kings of the Amorites joined forces to attack Gibeon. Joshua and the Israelites set out from Gilgal and went to Gibeon to help them. However, the Lord promised Joshua victory, and Israel defeated the enemy with a great defeat. As the Amorites fled, hail fell from the sky and stopped them. Joshua's prayer caused the sun and moon to stop moving. The 5 kings who had fled were found hiding in a cave. But Joshua brought them out, executed them, and took their land. Following the Lord's command, Israel conquered the land, taking the hills, the plains, and all the cities. Finally, Joshua and the Israelites returned to Gilgal and gave glory to God. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 11. Taking the northern land of Canaan. Joshua followed the Lord's command and fought against the northern Canaanite kings and their armies. Jabin, king of Hazor, formed an alliance with other kings and amassed a formidable army. However, the Lord told Joshua not to fear and promised victory. Joshua and his army boldly advanced, following God's instructions, and surprised the enemy. The Israelite army annihilated all the kings and their armies. Joshua, who captured Hazor and other cities and destroyed the enemy, obeyed the Lord's commands precisely. In the end, the Israelites took possession of the land. And the war ended. This demonstrates how God's plan is carried out. And Joshua's faith and obedience remain as an important lesson. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 12. The kings conquered by Moses and Joshua. The Israelites crossed the Jordan River and began their journey of conquest. During their journey, Moses and Joshua defeated many kings. To take possession of the land God had promised them. East of the Jordan, they defeated powerful kings like Sihon and Og. And the land was divided among the tribes. Afterwards, Joshua advanced westward and conquered many more kings. A total of 31 kings were defeated, including the kings of Jericho, Jerusalem, and Hebron. All of this demonstrates that God was with Israel and fulfilled his promises. The land was given to each tribe of Israel as an inheritance. And Israel began their new life in the land, according to God's promise. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 13. The unconquered territory. Joshua was old and advanced in years, and much land remained to be conquered. The Lord told him the boundaries of the remaining land, and commanded him to divide it among the 12 tribes of Israel. It included a vast area, from the land of the Philistines and the Canaanites to Lebanon and the Mount Hermon. Many tribes still lived there. The tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh received land east of the Jordan River, including the territories of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan. The tribe of Levi received no inheritance. Their inheritance became an offering to the Lord. According to the Lord's promise, the Israelites divided the land and continued God's covenant. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 14. Distribution of the land west of the Jordan. The Israelites divided the land of Canaan, the land God had promised. Under the leadership of the priest Eleazar, Joshua, and the heads of the tribes. As the Lord had commanded through Moses. The land was divided by a lot among the 9.5 tribes. The tribe of Levi received only cities to live in and pasturelands, but no land as an inheritance. Caleb, one of the descendants of Judah, approached Joshua and asked for the promised land of Hebron, declaring that he was still strong. Joshua blessed Caleb and, remembering his loyalty and faith, gave him Hebron as an inheritance. This was the result of Caleb's complete obedience to God, and war in the land was transformed into peace. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 15. The land of the tribe of Judah. Joshua chapter 15 begins by describing the land of the tribe of Judah. It includes the southern border, from the border of Edom to the wilderness of Zin, the eastern border of the Salt Sea, and the northern border of the Jordan River, extending to Kiriath Jearim. They divided the land by a lot according to their families, dividing it according to God's promise. Caleb followed God's command, conquering Hebron and Debir. Othniel, who conquered Debir, took Caleb's daughter Achsah as his wife, and received a blessing. The land of the tribe of Judah consisted of several cities and villages, and its boundaries were broadly divided into the hill country, the plains, and the wilderness. However, they were unable to completely drive out the Jebusites, so they settled together in Jerusalem. This remains another part of history provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 16. The inheritance of the tribe of Ephraim, and the tribe of Manasseh to the west. The inheritance of the tribe of Joseph, as assigned by lot, extended east of the spring of Jericho, from the Jordan River to the hill country of Bethel. From Bethel, it passed through Luz, along the border of the Arkites, and reached Ataroth. It then continued westward, along the border of the Japhletites, reaching to the sea, the westernmost point of Canaan. Thus, the two descendants of Joseph, Manasseh and Ephraim, each received their own inheritance. The tribe of Ephraim received the territory, from Ataroth Adar, through Upper Beth Horon, Michmetha, Ataroth, Nara, and Tappuah, all the way to the brook of Canaan. However, the Canaanites who remained in Canaan could not be completely driven out. So they lived among them, and were forced to serve as forced laborers. In this way, Israel's distribution of inheritance proceeded, according to God's will. And each tribe continued its life within its assigned inheritance. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 17. The western tribe of Manasseh. Joshua chapter 17 tells of the inheritance of the tribe of Manasseh, west of the Jordan River. Joseph's eldest son, Manasseh, received an inheritance not only in Gilead and Bashan, but also in many parts west of the Jordan. The daughters of Zelophehad, the female heirs, also received an inheritance, demonstrating God's justice and command. However, the descendants of Manasseh were unable to completely drive out the Canaanites, and had to live among them. Only after they had grown strong, did they enslave them as forced laborers. Meanwhile, the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, descendants of Joseph, appealed to Joshua about their limited land. Joshua advised them to expand their inheritance by clearing land for themselves. Joshua emphasized their largeness and ability. Joshua encouraged them that even though the Canaanites had iron chariots, they could drive them out. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 18. The division of the remaining land. The Israelites gathered at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle, preparing for a new beginning in the conquered land. However, there were still 7 tribes who had not yet received their inheritance. Joshua urged them not to delay in taking possession of the land. He selected 3 men from each tribe to survey the land. Upon their return, Joshua divided the land by lot before the Lord. The border of the tribe of Benjamin lay between Judah and the descendants of Joseph. The cities they received included Jericho, the valley of Benjamin, Kiriath Jearim, and 12 towns and villages. Everything was done according to the Lord's command, and the Israelites experienced God's guidance in the promised land. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 19. The division of the land among the tribes completed. Joshua chapter 19 describes the division of the land among the tribes after the Israelites conquered the promised land. The descendants of Simeon received their inheritance among the descendants of Judah. The descendants of Zebulun, Issachar, Asher, Naphtali, and Dan also received their respective allotments of land. This division was carried out according to God's command and plan. Each tribe received its own assigned cities and villages as its inheritance. Finally, Joshua himself took possession of Timnath-Serah in the hill country of Ephraim, thus completing the division of the land. This division of the cities was the fruit of Israel's faith and obedience. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 20. Cities of Refuge. The Lord commanded Joshua to appoint cities of refuge for the Israelites. These were safe places where anyone who accidentally killed someone could flee from the avenger of blood. The manslayer was to arrive at the city of refuge, explain his case to the city elders, and be accepted and allowed to live among them. Even if the avenger of blood followed, the manslayer was not released. However, he could not leave the city of refuge until he was found not guilty at trial, or until the death of the high priest. Israel established 6 cities of refuge: Kadesh in Naphtali, Shechem in Ephraim, and Hebron in Judah. These cities served as a protective measure for all Israelites and exiles, and were a testament to God's mercy toward the people. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 21. The cities of the Levites. The Lord's promises to the Israelites were fulfilled without exception. To fulfill their role, the Levites were given cities and pasture lands allotted to them by the 12 tribes of Israel. Beginning with the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, each tribe was given its own land by lot. The Levites lived in the cities designated among them and served God. These cities provided all their needs for life and ministry, including cities of refuge and pasture lands. The Lord kept all His promises to Israel and provided them with peace and rest in the land they inhabited. All their enemies were defeated, and God fully protected Israel. Thus, the Israelites lived in the land where His word was fulfilled and gave glory to God. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 22. Building an altar on the banks of the Jordan River. Joshua summoned the tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and praised them for faithfully obeying the Lord's commands and supporting their brothers. After blessing them, he allowed them to return to the land of Gilead, east of the Jordan River. However, they built a large altar on the banks of the Jordan River. The rest of the tribes of Israel were outraged, misinterpreting their actions as a rebellion against the Lord. The priest Phinehas and the leaders approached them and questioned them, and they explained that the altar had been erected as a testimony to the Lord's service for future generations. Upon hearing this explanation, the Israelites rejoiced, ceased their conflict, and offered praise to God as evidence of their salvation. The altar remained a symbol of the Lord's being. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 23. Joshua's last will and testament. In the final moments of his life, Joshua called the Israelites together and reminded them of all that God had accomplished. He testified to God's faithfulness and the history of His battles for Israel. He solemnly exhorted the Israelites to fully follow the law of Moses and remain loyal to God. He emphasized that they should not turn away from Jehovah and turn to idolatry, but that only by keeping God's covenant could they live in peace in this land. Joshua reminded them that, while God's promises are certain to be fulfilled, disobedience will be met with judgment. This was Joshua's last will and testament, filled with his faith, love, and sincere desire for his people. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day. Joshua, chapter 24. The death of Joshua. Joshua gathered all the tribes of Israel together at Shechem and reminded them. He urged them to put away the foreign gods their ancestors had served and serve only the Lord. He declared that he and his household had resolved to serve the Lord. The Israelites responded by swearing to serve only Jehovah. Joshua made a covenant with them and set up a large stone as a witness to this promise. After this, Joshua died at the age of 110 and was buried in the land of his inheritance. Eleazar also died and was buried in the hill of his son Phinehas. The bones of Joseph, which the Israelites had brought from Egypt, were also buried in Shechem. The Israelites served Jehovah as long as Joshua and the elders of his time lived. Provided by the Bible History School. If you subscribe and set up notifications, you can receive one chapter of the Bible every day.